The boss offered me 50 grand for my breast milk. At first, I assumed he was some kind of creep, maybe he wanted to take it home for a baby. But then I saw him one night, looking pale and weak, hands trembling as he drank it like it was the only thing keeping him upright. That was the moment I realized this wasn't about a hungry infant. He needed human milk to survive. Later, the number became 500,000. The catch? He wanted it straight from the source. For the money, I said yes. And then came the day he asked for 5 million. Would you? The first time my boss called me in, I walked to his office shaking and sweating, convinced I was about to be fired. If I lost this job, I was done. No income. No way out. When I was pregnant with my daughter, Bella, my old company pushed me out. Between hospital bills and the NICU, the little savings I had vanished. After that, I was reduced to asking my husband, Travis, for cash like I was a child begging for allowance. Every request turned into a fight, complaints, lectures, accusations. Don't buy that. That's unnecessary. And then the classic line. I'm broke too, Chloe. Thank God my body still produced enough milk. I could feed Bella without paying for formula. But diapers cost money. Clothes cost money. Every onesie she owned was already too tight. Winter was coming to Chicago, and she needed a coat. If I hadn't lucked into this job, my baby would have been shivering in damp diapers. You don't need to be nervous, my boss said, sitting across from me. His voice was smooth and calm, like he was talking to someone he actually respected. Mr. Sterling was 33, refined in a way that made him seem harmless, clean-cut, scholarly, the kind of man you instinctively trust. He folded his hands on the desk, eyes steady. I called you in for a personal matter. My shoulders loosened. For a second, I actually relaxed. Then he gave me a small smile. He was handsome in a way that almost felt unfair. But what hit me harder was something else, the quiet, unmistakable aura of old money. Not flashy wealth. The kind that doesn't need to prove itself. I envied him so much it made my chest ache. God, I regretted being young and naive, marrying Travis, having a baby before I understood how the world really worked. Now my life was a constant panic, and Bella was paying for my mistakes. Mr. Sterling's gaze didn't waver. Are you currently lactating? He asked. I blinked. Yes. I want to buy some of your breast milk, he said, like he was ordering office supplies. Is that acceptable? Buy? I repeated, confused. Rest assured, he added, I will pay. Naturally, I assumed he had a baby at home. Or a friend's child needed donor milk. In mom groups, people asked for it sometimes. Usually no one charged. If you had extra, you shared. So I said, Mr. Sterling, if you need it, you don't have to pay. Bella can't finish it all. I usually end up dumping the extra. He shook his head quickly. No. I don't like owing favors, he said. And I need a strict daily supply. If I don't pay you, I can't enforce my requirements. Requirements? That word made my stomach dip. But then I reminded myself, if money was involved, the rules changed. Without money, demands were rude. With money on the table, people asked for what they wanted. I nodded carefully. All right. But you don't have to pay much. Just a small amount. Part of me hoped being agreeable would keep me safe at work. Like loyalty could function as insurance. Mr. Sterling pulled out his phone, added me on Venmo, and sent the transfer instantly. $50,000. I stared at the screen, my mind struggling to process the number. That's too much. He raised a hand to stop me. Don't refuse. Then, in the same calm tone, he said, I have specific requirements. You've passed your medical checks, so I know your milk is safe. And I will be honest, some of my requests may feel intrusive. That's why the price is high. Looking at that transfer, my throat tightened. My bank account had $80 in it. I skipped lunch every day, living off breakroom crackers and stale coffee just to save pennies. I wasn't poor in a dramatic way. I was poor in the quiet, humiliating way, counting coins, choosing between diapers and groceries, praying nothing broke. And because I was poor, Travis and his mother treated me like I was disposable. Divorce wasn't simple. If I left, they would fight for custody. And with no money, I'd lose Bella. Even if I somehow won, I couldn't afford childcare, which meant relying on my mother-in-law to watch my baby, another kind of trap. Leaving Travis meant a deposit, rent, utilities, food, daycare. A life. A life I couldn't buy. But $50,000 could change the shape of my world. Mr. Sterling leaned back and laid out the rules like a contract. First, he said, you will pump here. In my private office. Every day. Nowhere else. I need to ensure everything is sterile and controlled. It made sense, in a strange way. Rumors said the Sterling family was impossibly wealthy. People like that were paranoid about contamination. Poison. Scandals. Anything. Second, he continued, to guarantee nutritional value, you will eat 3 meals a day prepared by my personal chef. I almost laughed from disbelief. Rich people lived on another planet. But it was also good for Bella. Better food meant better milk. And eating at work meant fewer hours at home, fewer meals sitting across from Travis while his mother watched me like a prison guard. Third, he said, I steady, during the contract period, I expect you to abstain from intimacy. My face went hot. That was invasive. Personal. Wrong. But he just sent me $50,000. And the truth was, the thought of Travis touching me made my skin crawl. I nodded, forcing my voice not to shake. Okay. He led me to a private lounge attached to his office. It was too luxurious for something that felt so humiliating. Soft lighting, a clean chair, a small table. Like a spa. Like a secret. I hated how vulnerable I felt doing something so intimate inside my boss's private space. But motherhood stripped shame out of you quickly. Your body stopped being yours the moment someone else depended on it. For the money. For my daughter. I set up the pump with trembling hands and stared at the wall while the machine did its work. When I was finished, I walked out holding 2 warm bottles. My cheeks burned. I'm done, I said softly. Should I put these in the fridge? Mr. Sterling didn't even glance up from his laptop. Leave them on my desk. I'll handle it. Dinner was served in his office that night, rich, balanced, perfectly seasoned. I ate slowly, almost afraid the food would vanish if I blinked. Then I pumped again, cleaned up, and clocked out. The first thing I did was transfer the money to a secret account. I was terrified Travis would see the notification and decide it belonged to him. I wasn't ready to leave yet, not that day. I needed to pass my probation period at work. I needed steady income. The $50,000 was a safety net, not a permanent solution. And I needed Bella a little older, old enough for daycare. Right now, I didn't trust strangers with her, and I couldn't afford a nanny. So I waited. Quietly. Carefully. When I got home, my mother-in-law shoved Bella into my arms and announced she was going to bingo, like babysitting her own grandchild with some kind of unpaid charity work. Travis was sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone. He didn't earn much, and I once believed he'd at least help around the house. But if I asked him to do anything, he'd snap that he was studying. He claimed he was preparing for a government job that would change our lives. If I pressed too hard, his temper flared in a way that made my hands go cold. Before I got pregnant, he'd been different. He cooked. He cleaned. He did laundry. He used to call me his delicate flower and act like taking care of me was his pride. He even saved for months to take me on a trip once. If I liked a purse but said no because it was too expensive, he'd borrow money to get me a cheap knockoff just to see me smile. I thought that was love. I thought I could marry a broke man as long as his heart belonged entirely to me. But the moment that pregnancy test turned positive, he changed. The affection dried up. The effort disappeared. Suddenly everything was about sacrifice and frugality, except it was always me sacrificing. If he'd shown his true face earlier, I wouldn't have given him a second glance. That night, I sat in the bedroom nursing Bella, staring at the cramped, messy apartment. The air felt heavy with old arguments, unpaid bills, and the sour, constant tension of being watched and judged. I felt lonely in a way that scared me. I couldn't imagine raising my daughter in this. Later, when Bella finally drifted off, Travis came into the room and reached for me without a word, like I was something he was entitled to. I pulled back. Not tonight. His expression darkened. It's been long enough, he muttered. The doctor said you're fine. I tried to move away. He grabbed harder. Fear rose so fast I could taste it. Stop, I said, sharper this time. He didn't. In the struggle, my hand flew up, more reflex than intention, and struck him. For a heartbeat, everything froze. Then Travis hit me back, hard. The room went silent except for my breathing and the faint sound of Bella stirring. Travis lunged again. I panicked. I grabbed my phone, heavy, solid, and swung it without thinking. He stumbled back, swearing, furious. The overhead light snapped on, harsh and blinding. "What is wrong with you?" he shouted, face twisted with rage. Bella woke fully and started screaming. I scooped her up, holding her close, trying to soothe her while my whole body shook. Travis moved toward me again, wild-eyed. I backed up instinctively. And he shoved me. I fell backward, curling around Bella like a shield as we hit the floor. Pain shot through my back, but I kept her lifted, kept her protected. The door burst open. Mrs. Higgins rushed in, not with concern, not with questions, only anger. She didn't ask what happened. She didn't check on the baby. She didn't look at the bruise forming on my face. She just started screaming that I was disrespectful, useless, ungrateful. Her hands flew, and I didn't even have space to defend myself without risking Bella. Travis stood behind her, watching with a cold, blank stare. When his mother finally stopped, she leaned close, breathing hard, eyes full of hate. "Serve my son properly," she hissed, "or you'll regret it." Then, like she was stating a fact, not a threat, she added, "You're worthless. You exist to take care of him." She turned to Travis, voice lowering like she was giving advice. "Some women only learn the hard way. You were too soft before." Travis nodded once, like she'd reminded him to take out the trash. "I know, Ma," he said. Then he looked at me on the floor, clutching Bella, and his eyes narrowed. "Give me the baby." Mrs. Higgins stepped forward and reached. Something in me snapped awake, pure instinct, pure terror. I tightened my grip around Bella, heart hammering so hard it felt like it might break my ribs. Because I knew what they were trying to do. And I knew, in that moment, begging wouldn't stop them. That night, I didn't sleep. In the morning, I didn't go to work. I couldn't. My face was swollen. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. My body felt like it belonged to someone else. I sat in a fast food booth for an hour, staring at the wall like it might tell me what to do. Then I went to a hardware store and bought the heaviest thing I could afford, not because I wanted violence, but because I wanted a chance. A chance to keep my daughter safe if someone tried to block the door. When I got back, Mrs. Higgins was cooking. Bella was asleep. I moved like a ghost. I grabbed my ID, Bella's documents, the diaper bag, whatever cash I could find. Then I lifted my daughter from her crib and held her tight against my chest. Mrs. Higgins looked up as I passed. She didn't even get off the stove. She thought I was taking Bella for a walk. That was how little she respected me. She didn't think I could run. My phone buzzed. A single question mark from Mr. Sterling. I got into a cab with Bella and stared out the window as the city blurred past. My eyes burned, and I couldn't stop the tears. I typed back with shaking fingers, "I'm sick. I need to take a day." His call came immediately. When I answered, his voice was gentle. "Chloe? What happened? Are you okay?" No one had asked me that in so long that it cracked something open. I started crying so hard I couldn't speak. An hour later, I was sitting in a private room in a quiet restaurant downtown, Bella sleeping against my shoulder. Mr. Sterling sat across from me, brows drawn together, listening while I poured out everything, the years of slow control, the way Travis changed, the way his mother watched me, the night it escalated into something I couldn't survive. When I finally stopped, he looked like he was trying to stay calm. "Do you have somewhere safe to go?" he asked. I shook my head. "If they find me, I don't know what they'll do. I don't think the police will help. They always call it a domestic matter. Like it's just an argument." I wiped my face and forced myself to say the part that mattered most. "Mr. Sterling, please, don't cancel the contract. I can meet your requirements now. I'm out. I won't go back. I need the money. I can't work if they're hunting me, and I can't leave Bella with anyone." His fingers tapped once on the table. Thoughtful. Controlled. "And if Travis and his mother find you?" he asked. My stomach dropped. "That's what I'm afraid of." He studied me for a long moment, then said quietly, If you're willing, you can stay at my house. I froze. He continued, like it was the most normal solution in the world. The security there is strong. Gates. Cameras. Staff. You'll be safe. And you can continue providing milk on schedule. I stared at him, stunned. And, he added, I can put you on payroll as well. Light work. Cooking, if you can. I can cook, I blurted out, too fast. I can cook really well. A small smile touched his mouth, like he'd already decided. So that was how I moved into my boss's home with my baby in my arms and bruises under my sleeves. His house wasn't a house. It was a quiet fortress. A modern estate outside the city, tucked behind iron gates and tall trees. The kind of place you only see in movies, where the driveway curves so long you can't see the front door from the road. He didn't treat me like a scandal. He treated me like someone he decided to protect. He told the staff to bring me clean clothes. He had baby supplies delivered, boxes and boxes of diapers, wipes, formula just in case, a new crib, a car seat, tiny winter jackets that made my throat tighten when I touched them. He told me to rest. To eat. To recover. For the first time since I got pregnant, I slept without listening for footsteps. And I pumped. Every day. Like we agreed. A few days in, I realized the truth. There was no baby. There was no friend's child. Mr. Sterling was the one drinking it. I'd heard rumors before, the kind you scroll past online and assume are fake. People buying human milk for strange health fads. Rich people always chasing the next weird miracle. But this wasn't a fad. It was a need. Because one night, my phone rang after midnight. His voice sounded wrong, thin, strained, like he was holding himself together by pure will. Chloe, he said softly. Can you come to my room? Bella was asleep, so I wrapped myself in a robe and padded down the hall. When I opened his door, my breath caught. Mr. Sterling was sitting on the floor, back against the bed, sweat on his forehead, his face drained of color. He looked like someone who'd been running from something invisible and finally collapsed. Mr. Sterling, I rushed to him. Do you need an ambulance? He shook his head, eyes half-lidded. No. It won't help. What is this? I whispered. My condition, he said. It flares. It's strange. And the only thing that helps is human milk. My hands trembled. I can pump. I'll do it right now. He exhaled like it hurt. Not like that. I froze. Direct, he said, voice barely above a whisper. It works best that way. Silence filled the room. Not romantic silence. Not sweet silence. The kind that feels heavy and wrong because you're standing at the edge of a decision that will change your life. Then his eyes met mine. I'll pay you $500,000, he said. For tonight. $500,000. I didn't even pretend to hesitate. That kind of money didn't just change a month. It changed a future. It changed custody battles and apartment deposits and daycare and lawyers and security and the shape of my daughter's entire life. So I sat beside him, heart pounding, and did what he asked, careful, awkward, trying to make it feel clinical when nothing about it felt normal. I held him steady. I kept my face turned away. I focused on the clock. On Bella sleeping down the hall. On the number in my bank account. His breathing eased. Color slowly returned to his cheeks. The trembling in his hands calmed. When it was over, he stood up like nothing had happened. Like we'd just finished a business meeting. Thank you, he said, adjusting his shirt, his voice perfectly composed again. I nodded too fast. Of course. I left his room and shut the door behind me. That night, I had a dream. And it wasn't about Travis. It was about Mr. Sterling. It was vivid and confusing and made me wake up with my cheeks burning like I'd done something shameful just by thinking it. I sat on the edge of the bed in the dim light, listening to Bella breathe, and I hated myself for the way my heart reacted to a man who had basically bought access to my body. But then I remembered the way he'd looked at me when I cried. The way he'd opened his home to me without asking for anything first. The way he'd made me feel safe. And the truth was, safety does things to a person. It makes you soft. It makes you grateful in dangerous ways. A few days later, when he sent the transfer, it hit my account like a punch. $500,000. I stared at it and thought, I can actually leave. I can actually fight. So I asked him, hands shaking, "Do you know a good lawyer?" I said, "Someone who can help me divorce?" He looked at me for a long moment, and for the first time, pity flickered across his face like a shadow. "In this system," he said carefully, "it won't be easy." My stomach sank. "So I'm trapped. Legally?" He said. "He'll try to trap you, yes." Panic crawled up my throat. "If he finds me, he'll take Bella. Or he'll—" "Chloe," he interrupted gently. "Breathe." I did, but it didn't help. He leaned back, gaze steady. "There are other ways. Unconventional ways." The words chilled me. I didn't ask what he meant. I didn't want to know what kind of world rich men operated in. I just wanted out. That week, Travis finally called. I recognized the number instantly, and my whole body went cold. I answered anyway, because part of me needed proof. Proof that I wasn't imagining him. Proof that he was real, and he was exactly what I feared. The second I said hello, his voice exploded through the speaker, slurred and vicious. "You think you can leave?" he hissed. "You think you can take my kid and run?" I pressed record without thinking. My thumb shook so badly I almost dropped the phone. "You're my wife," he snarled. "You don't get to choose. You don't get to walk away after everything I did for you. Everything he did for me." I almost laughed. Then his voice dropped lower, meaner. "If I find you, you'll regret it." I swallowed hard. "Travis, please. Don't please me," he snapped. "You want out? Dream on." He kept talking, spiraling into threats and insults I'd heard in my nightmares. He sounded like a stranger wearing my husband's voice. And when I finally hung up, my hands were shaking so hard I couldn't pick up Bella's bottle. I took the recording to the police. They listened with bored eyes, like I was interrupting their day. One of them shrugged. "This proves he threatened you." "Yes," I said, voice tight. "So can you help me?" He sighed. "Ma'am. You're married. It's complicated. At most, we can warn him. If he shows up and does something, call us. If he shows up and does something. Like I should wait until he hurt me again and then politely request assistance." I walked out of that station feeling like the world had a hole in it, and women like me fell through it every day. That night, Mr. Sterling found me sitting on the edge of the guest bed, staring at nothing. He didn't ask questions. He just sat beside me. "It won't always be like this," he said softly. I didn't know if he meant the law. Or my life. Or him. Over the next weeks, life settled into a rhythm that felt unreal. I cooked. I cleaned. I took care of Bella. I studied English at the kitchen island with a workbook Mr. Sterling bought me because he noticed I kept Googling words. He paid me $20,000 a month like I was a professional employee, not a desperate woman hiding behind his gates. He asked if I was tired. If I was eating enough. If Bella was sleeping. It was such a gentle kind of power that it made my heart do stupid things. My best friend, Maya, called from abroad. She was in school in the UK, always chasing a bigger life than the one we'd been handed. When I told her where I was, she went quiet for a long moment. "Chloe," she said finally, "I'm glad you're safe. But be careful. Rich men don't do anything for free." "He's not like that," I said too fast. Maya sighed. "I hope you're right. I really do. I wished I'd listened to Maya years ago. Before Travis. Before the baby. Before I learned the hard way that love is easy to fake, but poverty is always real." Then one night, after Mr. Sterling finished what he called his treatment, he didn't look away immediately. He just watched me. I adjusted my clothes too quickly, embarrassed. "Is something wrong?" He hesitated, like he was choosing his words. "May I kiss you?" he asked, polite as a gentleman in a period drama. My heart stuttered. I nodded before my brain caught up. His lips touched mine, soft, controlled, careful. Not hungry. Not rough. It felt like being offered something and being terrified to accept it. Then I pulled back, breathless, guilt flooding me. "I'm still married," I whispered. "He's awful, but I don't want to drag you into something dirty." Mr. Sterling's eyes didn't harden. He didn't get angry. He just nodded once. "If you don't want this, I won't force you." The relief hit so hard it almost made me dizzy. He wasn't Travis. He didn't take. He asked. And somehow, that made it worse, because it made me want him more. Weeks passed. Then months. Travis went quiet for a while, which scared me more than his threats. Silence meant planning. Bella grew heavier in my arms. Her laugh started to sound like music instead of a fragile little squeak. My English improved. My spine straightened. I started to feel like a person again. And my relationship with Mr. Sterling shifted into something that lived in the shadows. We didn't cross certain lines. But we got close enough that my skin burned with the wanting. One night, I kissed him first. He looked surprised for half a second, like he'd forgotten I could choose. Then he kissed me back, slow and deep, and for a moment I forgot every bruise, every insult, every night I'd cried into a pillow so Bella wouldn't hear me. He didn't push further. He held that boundary like it mattered. And I hated that it made me respect him more. A month after that, my phone rang. Mrs. Higgins. I almost didn't answer. But then I thought, maybe this is it. Maybe they're calling to negotiate. The second I picked up, her voice came through in a high, desperate wail. Chloe. Chloe, please, Travis is in trouble. I felt nothing. Not sympathy. Not fear. Just a cold, clean hatred. What trouble? I asked flatly. He went gambling, she sobbed. He lost everything. He owes people money. They said if we don't pay, they'll. I hung up. I didn't even wait to hear the rest. Then I blocked her number. And when she tried again from another phone, I blocked that too. When I told Mr. Sterling, he listened, expression unreadable. Then he said calmly, that was handled. I stared at him. What do you mean, handled? He gave me a faint, almost lazy smile. I have friends. A chill ran through me, but it was tangled with something ugly and honest. Relief. Because for once, the monsters in my life weren't the only ones with power. Not long after, Travis called again. His voice was different, sobbing, trembling, thick with fake regret. Chloe, he cried, I'm sorry. I didn't know what I had. I didn't realize how much you did until you were gone. I hung up. Then he texted. I'll divorce you. But we need to meet and talk. My pulse spiked. A divorce meant freedom. But meeting him meant danger. So I asked Mr. Sterling to come with me. He didn't hesitate. He sent security with us, two men who looked like they belonged on a movie set, silent and watchful. We drove back to my old apartment like we were visiting a grave. When I walked inside, the smell hit me first. Stale grease, old damp laundry, a decade of misery trapped in cheap walls. And for a second, I remembered the beginning. The apartment love, the jokes, the promises, the way Travis used to hold my hand like I was precious. Then I remembered the rest. Pregnancy. Hell. Travis stood in the living room, thinner than I remembered, eyes sunken. And he was missing a hand. Mrs. Higgins shuffled behind him. She was missing one too. They looked ruined. Not just physically. Like life had finally bitten back. When Travis saw me, he dropped to his knees and started crying like an actor who'd rehearsed it. Chloe, he sobbed, I was wrong. I was so wrong. He slapped his own face with his remaining hand, again and again, like pain could rewrite the past. Mrs. Higgins fell to her knees too, wailing. It was my fault, she cried. I poisoned your marriage. I'm old, I'm stupid, I deserve it. I stood there holding Bella, and something inside me stayed dead and unmoved. Because when I was on the floor with bruises blooming under my skin, no one had begged forgiveness. They demanded obedience. Travis looked up at me with wet eyes. Come back. Bella needs a father. We can be a family again. Behind us, neighbors had gathered. People peeking through cracked doors. Whispering. And then it got worse. Someone from a local family support office showed up. Then two cops. They walked in like they owned the air. One of the women looked at me and sighed dramatically. Your husband and mother-in-law are apologizing so sincerely. For the child's sake, shouldn't you consider returning? Another clucked her tongue at me. Your mother-in-law is kneeling. Do you know how disrespectful it is to let an elder kneel? One of the cops said, look. It's not worth divorcing over a few arguments. They know they were wrong. A few arguments. My hands tightened around Bella. Travis's face twisted and the mask slipped for a second. If you divorce me, he said, voice sharpening, I won't give up custody. There it was. The threat hidden in the apology. My heart hammered, but I remembered what Mr. Sterling had told me. Children under a certain age usually stayed with their mothers. And I had income now. Proof. Stability. Travis saw my confidence and panicked. Then he said something that made my stomach turn. Even if you'd been with another man, he spat, glancing at Mr. Sterling, I'll forgive you. Just come back. The room shifted. People murmured like I was the problem. Like I was the shame. Something hot and reckless surged up. You're lucky you're still standing, I said, voice shaking with rage. After everything you did, you're lucky you're breathing. Mrs. Higgins began moaning dramatically, like she was on stage. My poor son. Have mercy. Then she made a show of trying to hurt herself in a way that was clearly meant to manipulate the room, glancing at me to see if it worked. I didn't move. I didn't flinch. I just stared at her like she was nothing. Travis's expression hardened. If you try to take Bella, he said loudly, I'll call the police. I'll report you for kidnapping. One of the cops nodded like that made sense. He's the father, he said. You can't just take the child. My vision blurred with tears. I'm her mother. Then go to court, the cop said, bored. But I'm telling you now, don't make this harder than it needs to be. Harder than it needs to be. Like my life was a mild inconvenience. Mr. Sterling's hand touched my back, steadying, grounding. We're leaving, he said calmly. The security men moved in front of us like a wall, and we walked out. In the car, I broke. I cried so hard I couldn't breathe, pressing my forehead to the window while Bella whimpered in confusion. Mr. Sterling didn't speak for a long time. Then he said quietly, if we want a divorce, we do it on our terms. We waited until the hallway cleared. Then we went back upstairs. This time, there were no neighbors. No officials. No audience. Just Travis, Mrs. Higgins, and the truth. Travis looked at Mr. Sterling like he was sizing up a price tag. So, he said slowly, you want her? That's why she's leaving. His eyes slid back to me. Cold. Calculating. 5 million, he said. Pay me 5 million, and I'll sign. Mrs. Higgins started screaming, spitting insults, calling me every ugly name she could find, blaming me for not giving her son a boy, for daring to run, for daring to live. Travis waved her off. Mom, shut up. Let's be smart. Then he looked at me again. If you don't pay, he said, you're never getting out. My knees nearly buckled. I didn't have 5 million. Even with what Mr. Sterling had given me, I didn't have that. Mr. Sterling's expression didn't change. He said, 50,000. Travis blinked. What? A down payment, Mr. Sterling said calmly. You sign the initial paperwork and start the process. The rest is contingent on completion. Travis's eyes narrowed. He didn't like it. But he was desperate. Broken people get greedy, and greedy people get sloppy. He agreed. We paid 50,000. The paperwork began. And then we hit the waiting period. The forced cooling off time. 30 days where the law pretended marriage was a consumer purchase you could return if you changed your mind. I went home to the estate feeling hollow. That night, after Bella fell asleep, I opened my English notebook and forced myself to study. Because I finally understood something painful. This wasn't just about escaping Travis. This was about building a life so strong no one could ever trap me again. A month later, Travis refused to show up. He demanded more money. 10 million, he texted, as if he was auctioning my freedom. Then he called the police again and tried to claim I'd stolen Bella. When the cops came to Mr. Sterling's gate, I stood there holding my daughter while they pressured me, warning me about consequences, like I was the criminal. They left only because Mr. Sterling's lawyer stepped in and made them uncomfortable. That night, I sobbed until my throat ached. Mr. Sterling watched me with something like exhaustion. How did you let your life get this ruined? He asked softly. I don't know, I whispered. I really don't know. He pulled me into his arms. And against my better judgment, I clung to him like he was a lifeline. His mouth brushed my ear. Remember this lesson, he murmured. Never forget it. The next day, my phone rang. Unknown number. I answered, and a police officer's voice came through. brisk and detached. "Ma'am," he said, "we're notifying you that your husband passed away last night. It appears to have been an accident." My breath stopped. I sank into a chair, the room tilting. Travis. Gone. Just. Gone. I didn't cry. I didn't mourn. I felt something loosen inside me, like a vine unwrapping from my throat. Relief flooded my body so fast I almost got sick. Mr. Sterling stood behind me, one hand resting lightly on the back of my chair. "You're free," he said quietly. A few days later, Mrs. Higgins started causing scenes, demanding compensation from anyone who would listen, accusing the world of conspiring against her. She went to offices. She screamed at strangers. She tried to blame everyone but herself. Then, in the middle of one of her public meltdowns, something happened, an accident, sudden and senseless. And just like that, she was gone too. I stared at the news on my phone, my mind refusing to accept it. 2 nightmares. Ending like dominoes. I looked at Mr. Sterling with shaking suspicion. He met my gaze calmly, expression smooth. "Don't look at me like that," he said gently. I didn't know what to believe. I only knew the gates still locked at night. And I slept anyway. Time moved. Bella grew. My English became fluent enough that I stopped translating thoughts in my head. I thought my bond with Mr. Sterling would deepen. I thought gratitude would turn into love. I thought love would turn into something permanent. But his interest faded. Not all at once. Not cruelly. Just quietly, like a light dimming. At first, I blamed myself. I cooked better meals. I cleaned more. I tried to look prettier, even though the idea made me feel pathetic. Then one afternoon, I walked into his office carrying a tray, and stopped cold. A young woman sat on the couch, crying. She was beautiful in that effortless way. She had the soft glow of new motherhood. And when she shifted, I noticed the small signs I knew too well. She was lactating. Mr. Sterling's hand was on her shoulder, comforting her with that same gentle voice he'd used on me. Something inside me went silent. I asked a former coworker later, casually, like I didn't care. "Oh yeah," she said, eager to gossip. "She's new. Her situation is tragic. Mr. Sterling is such a saint for hiring her, honestly. A saint." I went back to my room that night and stared at the ceiling, feeling myself slide back into my place. Not lover. Not partner. Housekeeper. A chapter. Then one evening, Mr. Sterling came home smiling, real smiling, the kind that lives on a person's face when they've met someone new. He called me into the sitting room. "Chloe," he said, polite as always, "you should think about your future. What's your plan?" My throat tightened. Because suddenly, I understood. He was letting me go. Maya had told me months ago, from across the ocean, "You can't stop living at survival level. You have money now. Your baby is older. You can start over." Maya had even suggested I come to the UK. Study. Build something real. I didn't want to. I wanted to stay in the estate. In the safety. In the illusion. But looking at Mr. Sterling's calm eyes, I knew the illusion was ending whether I liked it or not. So I forced myself to say it. "I want to study abroad," I said. His expression brightened, as if I'd given the correct answer on an exam. "Good," he said. "I can help." I told Maya, and she practically shouted with joy. She immediately started sending me school links, housing options, visa checklists. I tried to feel excited. Instead, I felt hollow. Then, a few nights later, I went upstairs to retrieve one of Bella's toys from the balcony outside the second-floor hallway. I heard Mr. Sterling's voice drifting from his office below. He was on the phone. Speakerphone. I paused without meaning to. A man's voice came through, laughing. "So what about your little condition? Still obsessed with saving lactating moms?" Mr. Sterling chuckled softly. "You say it like it's a bad thing." "It's weird," the man said. "You collect broken women like trophies." Mr. Sterling took a sip of wine. I could hear it in the quiet. "You don't understand the feeling," he said lazily. "It's the power of it. Watching someone drowning, and then you appear. You break their old life apart. You rebuild it. You turn misery into loyalty." My blood turned cold. He continued, voice smooth as silk. And sometimes, he said, amused, the universe rewards you. The kind of men who do that to women. They stumble into consequences. It's almost poetic. And no one asks questions. The man laughed. You're telling me you enjoy it. Mr. Sterling exhaled, like he was savoring the thought. Of course I do. It's exhilarating. I couldn't breathe. He went on, casual and cruel. The chase is the best part, he said. The fear. The hesitation. The way they cling. But once they're safe. Once they're mine. It gets boring. My hand flew to my mouth. I backed away silently, my feet barely touching the carpet, my heart pounding so hard I thought it would give me away. I walked into my room and sat on the floor beside Bella's crib, staring into the dark. I wanted to scream. I wanted to throw up. I wanted to deny it. But deep down, I already knew something about Mr. Sterling had always been off. Because normal men don't buy breast milk for $50,000. Normal men don't keep women like me behind gates. Normal men don't speak about saving someone like it's entertainment. And yet, even after everything, my chest tightened with one brutal, honest truth. He did save me. Maybe for the wrong reasons. Maybe as a game. Maybe as a sickness of his own. But without him, I don't know if I would have survived Travis. So I cried silently into my hands. Not because I wanted Mr. Sterling's love anymore. But because I was mourning my own weakness. The part of me that had almost mistaken safety for devotion. The part of me that had been so starving for kindness that I would have accepted it from anyone. A week later, I booked my ticket. I packed my bags. I held Bella close and whispered promises into her hair. We were leaving. Not because I hated Mr. Sterling. Not because I could erase what he did. But because I could finally choose myself. In the UK, the air was colder. The days darker. Winter felt sharper there, like the sky was made of steel. Maya met me at the airport and hugged me so tight I almost fell apart. You did it, she whispered. You actually did it? I looked down at Bella's little hands gripping my coat and realized something simple and terrifying. My life was mine again. No gates. No contracts. No men deciding my worth in numbers. Just me. And my daughter. And a future that was unknown, but finally, mine. So if you're listening to this and you're stuck in something that feels impossible, I need you to hear me. Sometimes the world won't rescue you. Sometimes the system won't protect you. Sometimes the people who help you aren't heroes. But you can still walk out. You can still rebuild. You can still choose yourself. And this time, I will.